when I woke up, I told the friend who had said this is pretty good LSD, I told him what happened. I said, I know what I'm going to do with my life now. And he said, you know, I think maybe you took a little bit too much. And with my girlfriend, I thought, oh my God, I can't, I mean, I'm just a kid. I can't get married. I'm just so how to get out of that commitment. And yet there was something indelibly changed. There was some deep alteration and some way in which certainly all of the things that are possible didn't happen, but many, 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 many. It was like Stan used to talk about sometimes the first session like that with a high dose, you get like a core sampling of every different level inside. And so, you know, I had all of that sort of dangling there, and then my education, and you know, I went back to school and made sure I took one of the first courses in altered states of consciousness, and slowly my career unfolded, and I found out about Stan Grof, and I met him, and I had some other experiences where I experienced childhood memories and recovering traumas, and
through LSD.
Yeah, very low dose. Yeah. And discovered Stan's work. I didn't know about Stan's work before. There's this moment of professor that was teaching the Altered States course. By now I was assisting with the teaching of the course, and he said, oh, I went to this conference in the Midwest, and I heard this guy, Stanislav Grof, and I told him I was teaching a course. So he gave me his slides, and here's a tape of his presentation. So I took the slides and the tape, and I listened to them.
To slides of Stan Grof.
Of Stan, of his patient's artwork. And it was like, you know, inhaling and swallowing all at once. I immediately got the whole thing. It was like a transmission, you know. And so then I went and I gave a lecture to the class about Grof's work. And one of the students was really interested, and he got together with me. He said, can we get together and talk about this and have some like little group about it? I said, sure. He showed up. It was just him and his girlfriend. And I said, well, it's not very many people. And then we talked a little more, the impetuousness of youth. And I said, well, maybe what we should do is try to reproduce this guy Grof's work a little bit, you know? So how about if the next time we get together, I'll take a little bit of LSD before we get together, and then I'll show you how to guide me. And so we got together, and I showed him what to do, and I was working with body psychotherapy a little bit, so I knew to tell him, look, I'll lie down here, and I'm going to just try to talk about whatever's on my mind. And what I want you to do is to notice when I'm uncomfortable. Like when I'm squirming, and then if you see that I changed the subject, I want you to bring me back to what I was talking about. And that was the only instruction I gave him, and he did that, and I ended up going back in my life until suddenly I got to this place where I mean, I didn't think of it this way at the time, but I became very regressed, and I was like a child, and I remember I had some kind of eye covering on, and I looked out from under it, and he was smoking cigarettes. And I remember that when I was a child, many people around me smoked. Many in my family don't, but there were adults smoked, and so I felt like a little child around this adult that was smoking and his girlfriend, and then suddenly realized that I really, somehow it was very important what they thought of me. And it was, again, the feeling of a child toward adults or toward parental figures, that I wanted them to love me, and that I was going to somehow say something or do something and they weren't going to love me anymore. And then he asked me to go back and talk about something I'd been talking about, and suddenly there was like this emptiness, and I started to say, once upon a time. And when I said that, it was my third eye opened, and suddenly I had this absolute vivid picture of a scene in my childhood where my mother and father were fighting. And I could see them, I could see me, and it was all playing off. It was happening again. And there was a handyman that worked at my aunt's house, and he was there, and I could see the color of his car, the pattern of the shirt he was wearing, absolutely everything, and that played off. And it was a memory that I had completely buried. So people would say to me, my parents were divorced, and people would say to me, well, wasn't that painful? And I'd say, no, because I don't ever remember them being together. So in this scene, they were together and they're fighting. And then I felt this enormous pain in my neck and started to see snakes and came out of it. And out of that experience, I felt like I could understand something very profound about myself, how I was put together, how I was holding this memory down had a lot to do with how I would hold myself back in living, or I wouldn't let myself do certain things. Or so it felt like on a deeply intuitive level, an understanding of repression and a way of alleviating it inside of me, even though I had no words for this at the time. So that was another step along the way.